Today's exec Zoom call started with them talking about the unexpected death of my former program manager. Then they said, anyway, on to today's agenda. It was in that moment I vowed to never overwork myself again. People mention you once, then move on with work. Hey everyone, welcome. All my returning Toya Talks podcast listeners, welcome. All my new Toya Talks podcast listeners, welcome. Please acquaint yourself with all of the previous episodes of the Toya Talks podcast. Guys, I'm still really hot. I know we had that mini heat wave, but I still feel like it's pretty humid. So intermittently, I'm going to put my fan on because I can't come and die for a podcast, okay? I literally am wearing my Calvin Klein top and bottom. I have no clothes on because I can't. Before we start this episode, I want to ask you guys if you have seen what's happened in America, Wisconsin. A young black man was going to his car. I don't think we've seen what happened beforehand, but the police were there and the police were trying to grab hold of him. And he literally walks very calmly over to his the driver's seat of his car. And as he tries to enter his car, he is shot by an officer 7 times. And it was 2 officers who were white. And it was a young black man. Apparently, he has not passed away. He hasn't died. By the grace of God, he's actually they're saying he's stable and in hospital. And again, it's another triggering scene. And to watch it, I think I watched it twice because I couldn't really believe what my eyes were seeing. And it really got me. It got me in my heart, especially after the tragic death of George Floyd. And in America, I'm trying to understand. Is it the gun laws? Is it the lax gun laws? Is it the powers that they give the police officers over there that literally black men's lives there are treated as though it doesn't matter? And with all these scenes and images and videos coming out of America, we have to pray for our black kings in America. And I definitely know in my heart that I felt triggered. And if you felt triggered, I would ask you just to take some time out, because that's what I did. I have switched my phone off, and I've only literally switched it back on. I switched it off for a few hours, and I think later on in the week I'm going to do it again. And I think social media is very informative to an extent, but it's also quite triggering, especially when it comes to our black kings. So I definitely want to put all my prayers into that young black man, and I hope that he comes out of this and recovers from his gunshot wounds and sue the shit out of the Wisconsin police officers in the States. So in this episode, we are going to talk about fixed term contracts because we're in fixed term contract season. And I have my own story to add, but one of my friends actually, she listened to the podcast and she said to me, Toya, you need to consider maybe doing it, because I feel like as black women, a lot of us don't understand fixed term contracts. Here are some of the scenarios that I've had to have conversations about, and no one's listening to me. And I definitely know with your influence and with your knowledge, people could really benefit from understanding fixed term contracts and the way you break it down. So that's what we're talking about today. I think I'm calling this episode, because I haven't named it yet, fixed term contracts and not fixed term relationships. And I think that just, for me, sums up everything to do with fixed term contracts. But of course, we're going to break it down. Now, I have had a lot of questions, and I'm going to go into the meat of this episode and then answer some of the questions and weave in and out of the questions. I think that's probably the better way to do it. Also, as well, one of the main questions I get quite frequently is about kind of what I do and things like that. And I know that they're usually from people who are quite new to the podcast. So I would like people to go and listen to previous podcast episodes. But for those of you who know already, you know my background, so you know that I run my own contract management consultancy. So I'm a contract consultant. Now, one thing that has become really apparent to me, especially because of my WhatsApp groups that I belong to. There's a particular WhatsApp group that I belong to, and they're significantly older than me. They've been contracting for between 10 to 12 years. So for me, I have only been contracting for, I think it's coming up to 2.5 years now. And in this particular WhatsApp group, my friends have been really, really good in educating me about contracting from the tax perspective, but more from the professional perspective, how to look for contracts and things like that. And it was actually one of my friends in the group chat that said, you know what, Toya, you really need to go into a bit more consultancy if you can. And before the lockdown happened, I remember a conversation in the group chat, and one of them said, you know what, Toya, you need to have more than one contract. Like, you've started off with one contract and that's great, but you need to have multiple revenue streams. And it really did have me thinking. I think when I first started contracting, I could only manage one. As I got used to the swing of contracting, its demands, and how I would take to contracting, I took to it like a duck to water, because I'm very much a free spirit. So contracting suits me down to the ground. So one of my friends, she has 3 contracts at the same time. And one of them is actually in the States. So she works on it at different hours, obviously, because of the time difference. I've got another friend, he has 4 contracts because he won a contract today, actually. And when they planted that seed in my mind, I had to go away and think about whether I could manage that, because I also manage Toya Talks and everything that comes with it. And I thought, you know what, I can do more than one contract. So when I've been doing my consultancy, I take more than one consultation at the same time. But I really wanted to take a fixed term contract as well, because a fixed term contract is kind of halfway between a perm and a contract, as in an interim contract. And it would work quite well because we're in the era of remote working. So I can still do an FTC contract and keep my limited company running. And I still have consultancy requirements that come in daily. So it would work quite well for me. And also as well, I think that it would force me to kind of wear different hats at different times and push me from a career perspective. And I'm all about development and encouraging people to come out of their comfort zone. You know, we're taught to have one job at a time. This is your job. You know, gone are the days of job for life, but I was brought up in the era where jobs for life was a thing. And we all know now that that just doesn't exist. So I have, as it stands at the moment, I have 2 contracts at the same time, and I'm now looking for like an FTC contract. It just makes sense. It makes sense, especially because I understand how fixed term contracts work. It fits in with my lifestyle. So to start this episode, I want to tell you about an experience I had with an FTC, and then we can go into the different areas. So I was in the middle of a contract consultancy, and literally I had to say, I was instructed, say, on Monday, so I delivered it like on a Friday. And I thought, do you know what, I'm going to have a look for an FTC. So I went into kind of the portals and where I would look for roles in my specific career. And my friends who range from project managers in IT infrastructure to coders, you know, we all have our unique speciality. So whenever they see something that's relevant to my area, they always send me a link or send me a private message. So I had quite a few. So I'd gone online and started to search for fixed term contract roles, and there was a particular fixed term contract role, and it was quite light on the information, but I thought that kind of reflected the fact that you know, it was they wanted a rapid response and they wanted someone to hit the ground running. So I applied for the role. Within about 3 days, I got an email, sorry. And the email said, oh, would I be available for 15 minutes to have a quick call about the role? Now, when I look at the email signature, because that's what you guys should be doing, you know, this is part of kind of your due diligence when you are in roles already, applying for roles or going through a process. You should be doing your due diligence. So as soon as I got the email, the first thing I did is look at the email signature. I need to know the role of the person, because this will tell me and this will shape the questions that I would ask. And this person was literally just a HR assistant, right? So this is not the hiring manager that I'm going to be talking to. So they said they just want to ask me a few questions. So in my head, I was thinking, what are you going to ask me in 15 minutes? It's just weird. Anyway, so I had the initial call with them, and they asked me, you know, why I applied for the role, which I think is just such an elementary, mundane question. Like, why the hell do you think people apply for roles? Because they're looking for a job. You know, I felt like saying to her, because it's a fucking recession. And actually, I want multiple revenue streams. But, you know, you can't really answer like that. But again, this kind of made me a bit weary. I was like, why are you asking me such elementary questions? And then she said, why would you like to work for our organisation? Well, because you're advertising a role, you dickhead. That's what I felt like saying. And then I answered the question, and she sounded so excited at my answers. So I'd already made a note that I need to, ask more detailed questions, obviously, when if I'm taken to the next stage with the hiring manager. So within 48 hours, I received an email from the head of legal. Now, I just want to give you guys some context. This role was for a commercial contract director, and it would require the person to go in and basically set up a contract management function. And we're talking from the implementation of policies and processes to hiring a team to managing the team. And that person will be sitting on the senior leadership team. So this is something that I do. I live and breathe it, but this is where one would commit for a certain period of time on a fixed term basis. So it worked out quite well. So now, when I got to the next stage, they sent me a more detailed job description, one that I would have expected to see with the advert, but whatever. So I looked at it, marked it up like I would mark up a contract. And when I say mark up, what I mean is, so when you mark up a contract, you flag things up. At points for negotiation. So when you mark up a job description, it's kind of the same. So you will flag up certain things, or you will flag things that you can relate to experience you already have and things like that, or questions that the job description throws up that you need to make sure that you ask the hiring manager. So that's what I did. I marked up the job description. But in the body of the email, the head of legal had said, Toya, I'd love to invite you for a video interview. And then later on in the email, she goes, it must be a video interview. I think she highlighted that about 3-4 times. That is a red flag for me, because if my camera wasn't working, are you saying that you wouldn't then have an opportunity to use your unconscious bias and therefore you wouldn't give me the role? Like, I get we're in remote working, but for me, there was too much of an emphasis on the video interview. So that already like kind of irritated me, whatever. So I accepted the video interview invite. And then I went back to her and I said, I just wanted to clarify a couple of questions, because she said if I've got any questions before the video interview, I should come back to her. So I just want to clarify a couple of things before we proceed to a second stage. How many stages are there? And also as well, can you please clarify how much this job is being advertised for? I understand it's a commercial contract director, and therefore I can assume a certain salary bracket, but it would be great if you would confirm that. And also it's an FTC contract, so can you confirm how long the FTC contract will be for? Now, remember, these questions were quite vague. So really and truly, I could have asked HR, but remember I said there's a limit to what the assistant HR person is going to tell me. The hiring manager, that is a person that has drafted that job description. That is a person that knows who they're looking for. And also that's the decision maker. So your questions that you will ask a decision maker is very different to the questions you may ask HR or a HR assistant. Like, I'm not new to this. I'm seasoned. I'm very well seasoned. I'm very well seasoned chicken. Thank you. So she came back to me and she said that it is a fixed term contract for 18 months. And that's quite significant. She says for 18 months. And she says it is a role that sits in the senior management team because of the level that it's at. And the role is, and I can share the salary, £43,000 per annum. I was confused. Now, at this time, I was 3 hours into my water fast, so I didn't know if I was hallucinating. I was very confused. So I said, no, this must be 43 miles to the role. Because she says it's remote working. However, once a month, one is expected to come into the office, which is not an issue. So when I saw 43, I thought this is miles from my house to there. I was just so confused. So I asked her to give me a call. I said, would you mind just giving me a quick call? Because I don't want anything to get lost in translation. Yeah, that's what I said. So she rang me. I said, hi, Sally. And she said, hi, Toya. Yeah, you said you wanted to clarify a couple of things. Did you get my email? I said, Sally, I got your email. I said, Sally, I am deeply confused. And before I kind of go into your response. I really would like you to clarify your email. Would you mind doing that? She goes, no, of course. So she went through her answers and then she got to the salary and she says £43,000. I says to her, Sally, when you saw my CV, when you saw the CV as it was presented, there was no way you was not going to interview me. Now, this role is a commercial contract director. So it's director in name. It's not like it's one will have shares in the company. I could tell that because it also says in brackets that it doesn't sit on the board and something like that. But it sits on the senior leadership team. She says yes. I said, so what makes you think that in this economy that I or anybody else for that matter who applies for this role will think that £43,000 is adequate? I says, it's highly insulting that you are seeking to take advantage of what's happening in the market now by crashing the salary and hoping that somebody is desperate enough to accept this role at this rate. I says, no offense, I'm not desperate. Like, as you can see from my application, I have every intention of continuing doing my consultancy and keeping my limited company open. I made that quite clear and I don't see any issue with doing that. But at the same time, it's the fact that you're utilizing the opportunity to take advantage of somebody. You and I both know that £43,000 doesn't even cut it. I said, do you know the last time I was on a salary in its 40s? I said I was 24 years old. I'm 35 years old now. There is no way. I says, if I was desperate, I would rather sign on than take a job that's £43,000 with my level of experience, the salary that I have become accustomed to. The day rate, I wouldn't necessarily compare it because you earn so much more as a contractor on a day rate than you would do if you was a perm member of staff. But if I take my last salary as a perm, adding together the experience that I have achieved, there is no way 43,000 will ever be acceptable. And the fact that you think it is acceptable makes me worried. She was just quiet for this whole thing. I says, when you have insisted on a video interview, I think it's partly because you want to see who is stupid enough to accept 43,000, but that's never going to be me. I says, you've seen my experience, PwC, Goldman Sachs, Capita, the list goes on, and it hasn't been small jobs. I have managed multi-million pound contracts, yeah? I've line managed teams. I have introduced infrastructures to deal with contract management and the process. I have trained members of staff and worked cross-functional and cross-jurisdiction. And you want me to dumb down my experience for £43,000. I said, I am withdrawing from the process with immediate effect. And in line with GDPR, I would ask that you remove my details from your systems effective immediately. I was fuming. She didn't say anything. She goes, okay, thank you. And I put the phone down. Within 5 minutes, I got cancelled meeting request. And then when I went back on the ads, it had been withdrawn. Of course, you've got to withdraw it. Like, what the fuck? But it wasn't even necessarily about me. It was the fact that I know, because I've got loads of dilemmas in the inbox, I have a really broad network of friends who are contractors, who have moved from contractors to fixed term contracts and perm roles. I know what the market looks like. Therefore, when I'm seeing something like that, I'm so offended that organizations think they can do shit like that. And there's no one that's going to hold them accountable. But when I am applying for a role, I'm going to hold those businesses accountable, especially when I know I'm withdrawing my application and walking away, because that is not how it's done. And I do not believe in taking advantage of people. Whilst I know you're never going to get what you deserve because your skills and your experience is priceless, you need to get what is fair. And one thing that drives me mad is injustice and unfairness. I can't take it. And that's across the board of my whole life. I can't take injustices. I can't take unfairness. I like balance, fairness. I couldn't even believe that she had the guts to write it down. If she was smart enough, she should have left that for the video interview, because actually, probably not, because I would have said the same thing via the video. Now, I sound very, very passionate, and I sound passionate because this market is crazy. Now, I want to put something to you a different way. There are roles that I'm lucky and a lot of us are lucky, we're in our chosen careers that we love, okay? And I've said to you, passion changes a job into a career. I'm very, very, very passionate about being a contract consultant. I love it. I live and breathe it. You guys know this, right? But there are days when you wake up and you're like, I don't want to do this today. I can't. Like, your mind is just, do you know what? I'm overworked. My mind is discombobulated. I can't do work today. But then you remember how much you earn. And then that can motivate you to get out of bed. Do you understand what I'm trying to say to you? Money is really, really important because money acts as a motivator. It's not the sole motivator, and I don't believe it should be the sole motivator. I think you have to have a passion for the job to show up every day without screaming and having a meltdown. But then my question also is, if you want to pay a commercial contract director £43,000 and then you want them to do all this stuff, but one of the main things is to put together a contract management team, how much is that contract management team going to be on? So what is going to motivate them when they are tired, overworked, and don't want to do the job anymore to get out of their beds to come and report to me? So if you're giving me 43k, that means they must be on what, 15, 20k? What? In this economy? One of my friends, I told her, she says, Toya, listen, everyone's talking about recession, but Hermes is not on sale. It ain't that bad. I said to her, it is actually true. Listen, when Primark go online, that's when you know this recession has really hit us on a different level. When Louis Vuitton goes on sale, then you know that we're in trouble. We ain't there yet. So everybody that's beating their chest about recession, y'all need to know we ain't in the recession yet. Do you understand? This is the preliminary. This is the shit that happens before you hit the recession. I don't understand. Honestly, I was so furious. I think I was furious for 2 days. I was really, really angry. And it reiterated to me the importance of doing an episode about a fixed term contract, the questions that you guys need to ask before you get yourself involved. And equally as well, I think we also need to open up our minds to multiple revenue streams. It's something that I haven't touched on the podcast, but it's something that I will touch on now, and then I will dedicate an episode to multiple income streams because I think it is so important. Now, someone could turn around and say, but Toya, you're in a good position because at least you can reject it and walk away because you've got, your limited company. Okay, fine. But at the same time, I still got hopes, dreams and aspirations. There's things that I need to accomplish. I could have really done with a good fixed term contract role. At least that one would be a fixed term contract for a set amount of time, whether I had a consultancy work for 2 weeks where it's gone dry, at least I know I've got that. Do you understand? But what I will never ever do is compromise myself for a job that's paying 43,000. I'm really sorry. I'm not gonna sit here and start telling you guys this is how much I expect to get, but put it this way. When I was at Goldman Sachs, I was on 70k, and I was in Goldman Sachs over 6 years ago. So you can imagine what I expect to be paid and what I have been paid post Goldman Sachs. So there is no way on God's green earth am I going to accept 43k. Now don't get it twisted. Remember, I said to you in my early 20s, I was on a salary in its 40s, and that's fine. That was reflective of my experience. It was reflective of even my age, to be honest, which, to be honest, for people my age, that was quite really good salary. But not now that I've done LLB honours law degree. I went to law school and did my LPC. I've got my master's in law. I've done level 4 procurement. I've worked for all these organizations and gained over 8 years experience as a contract manager and now a contract consultant that I've worked for all these organizations. You think now I'm going to take a back step for 43k. So those days when I can't wake up out of bed or don't want to get out of bed, I definitely won't be getting out of bed for 43k. And I think some of you need to look at roles in that way. When things are tough, when things are hard, am I going to be able to get out of bed for this salary? If the answer is no, then you really need to think about whether you can accept that. Now, don't get it twisted. I know in desperate situations where we are desperate, sometimes you do have to take that lower salary and still be looking for other jobs. But I don't think we're there yet. I personally, I don't think, I definitely am not there yet. Do you understand? But even when you're going to compromise how much you're willing to accept, let it be reasonable, because you still have bills to pay, darling. You've got a roof over your head to keep. You've got food that you need to buy. Like, let us not take job roles where we're going to end up resenting the job, resenting the role, and start creating problems because of the frustration of a salary that you know that you cannot live on. I don't agree with that. I did it before, years ago, when I worked in a call center. And the salary, oh my, do you know, after paying everything off, all I had left was £50 for the month. I did it for 4 months and I couldn't do it no more. Going to work and I wouldn't eat, and I tell everybody I'm fasting. Fasting for 4 months. No, it wasn't that. I was just poor. Poor. And it was made worse by the fact that we was paid every month, and I'd see that money going in and I would watch that money going out. The days when I didn't want to go into work, I knew if I don't go into work, I'm not going to get paid. So I had to go in. How many sickness leave can you take before you they start putting you under review? Let's put things into context. Like, don't cut your nose to spite your face out of desperation. And I say this knowing that desperation causes us to act in an involuntary way. But what I don't want to encourage is people to take a lower salary, a salary they can't even live on, just so they can be earning money. But really and truly, are you earning money? Because after you've paid all your bills, you have £50, £40, £100 left over and can't even buy toilet roll and sanitary pads. No, the times for that has passed. Employers think that they're bargain shopping on the employment market. Yeah. They think that this employment market is like a car boot sale. Yeah. And they think everything is cheap. So because of the pressures of the pandemic, and because it has been now announced that we're in a recession, before the recession has actually affected these organizations, they want to drive down the salary. So, and I'll give you an example. Some of you that were made furlough, they're now asking, no, not even asking, they're telling you that they're going to review your employment contracts. Do not get caught out. You don't have to sign a new contract, but obviously under the current climate, the option may be, if you don't want to re-sign a contract, then we have no job for you. So I understand, but this is what I say: you need to ask questions, put those questions in writing. You need to be able to professionally challenge what they're trying to get you to sign up to. I already know of at least 2 people where their salaries, they had to take a salary cut as part of a furlough agreement, and that now that they're coming off furlough, the employer is now telling them they're reassessing and re-examining. That's what they wrote. Re-examining is these people's contracts an autopsy? No problem. They're re-examining people's employment contracts. And that salary cut they took for the furlough, they are now going to put it in the contract that the salary stays cut, and they're even making it lower. Yeah, I have one friend, she took 20% salary cut. Because I said, if we're going to put you on furlough, unfortunately, we have to cut you lot's salary. And they made them sign an agreement. She didn't tell me any of this. She told me last week. Yeah, everybody's carrying plenty sense. Here I am to help you, but you wanted to carry on your chest. No problem. And I get it, because at the end of the day, at least they were still earning something. I get that. But now you can look at it now. Everybody, oh, my employer is so fantastic, fanbulastic. Really? Wait now that the furlough scheme shuts in October. You will see what will happen. You know what pepper is? Not ordinary pepper. The pepper you get in the village. They're going to cut it and put it in you lot's eyes because they're mad. And they think that you won't ask questions, you won't challenge. They think that we are just going to accept rubbish, when in fact you cannot. In fact, they're going to use this opportunity. If they dislike you or they want to discriminate against you, they'll use this opportunity to use their discrimination to drive down your salary, and still expect you to turn up every day to their Zoom calls to say good morning to them and put your video on. They're crazy. You know, I know that I've matured. Do you know when I was in my 20s? Hell, that's when I made the worst mistakes. I've got to be honest. I would say towards my mid to late 20s, that's when I was bossing up my career. But before then, do you think then if they tried to do that furlough thing to me, I was crazy. I had no filter. But this is the reason why I feel I'm best placed to be in a position to tell you guys this, because I know what the worst case scenario is, because often I've been there and I know how badly to handle a situation. And in my maturity and experience, I now know how I've navigated success in my own career, and I'm going to share those gems with you. Yes, my dears, this is what I'm saying to you. I said it to you in the last episode. Some people are unemployed and don't even realize it yet. They'll realize in October when the furlough scheme is closed. Yeah, there was this one guy and he said to me, "Oh, Toya, you know, the government are only paying 80% of our salary up until a certain threshold. And it's discretionary whether organizations and employers will then meet the 20%. And I think it's so amazing that my company is meeting the 20%. I say, yeah, they're massaging you because they're going to deal with you lot at the end of the furlough. Do you know what he said to me? He goes, "What do you mean deal with you lot? Toy, you don't know everything, you know. At the end of the day, da 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 da." He was just doing ga 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 ga, fambalastic. I didn't even respond because I never told you I knew everything, but I know white people. I know them very, very well. And I use a long spoon to eat with them. What happened now? What has happened now? Did he not sign something to say that he's willing to take a salary cut for the duration of furlough? Now he received in his inbox a new employment contract. He forwarded it on to me. I sent him an email response. I said, "I don't know everything. You'll have to deal with this one on your own. I'm not coming here to do madness. If you send something to me, you ask me a question, be it my friend or anybody, and you ask me my opinion, I will give it to you and I'll be honest. And yes, I'm straightforward and often maybe a little bit too straightforward, but I'm telling you, what you see is what you get. And I am so passionate about ensuring that we navigate as Black women safely that I'm willing to give you the hard truth because white people won't. They will allow you to enter their madness. And then what happens is you'll get upset, you'll get into your emotions and they'll tell you you're being aggressive. Better you deal with the truth as I say it to you. Yes, I replied to my friend. I said, "I don't know everything, i.e. deal with it yourself." If he wants my services, I'm quite happy to give it to him, but he will pay the consultancy rate because then you will respect what I do. And also, I say it's a friend, but I need to give a bit of context. It's somebody I used to work with, so it's a work friend, not a friend, because my actual friends, my real friends, we don't deal with each other like that. There's respect, but more importantly, it's about uplifting each other. When you go to somebody and you ask somebody for help, you have to allow them to help you. If you go to somebody with all the attitude, you need to take that same attitude into your office. You need to take that same attitude into your daily Zoom calls at 8:30. You need to do that. Don't need to bring it to me because I don't have no time for it. I'm here to help those who want to be helped. I'm here to support, encourage, teach and motivate Black women and in turn motivate myself. I'm not here to pacify anybody because you see our shoulders, we're going to have high shoulders because the next few months we are going to see Raz. Do you know what Raz is? We're going to see Raz. They haven't spoken about us leaving the EU. We still haven't had that conversation. Okay. The question you guys should also be asking with the example of what I went through with that FTC is how much is that head of legal actually on? You know, businesses don't have money at the moment to just spare. They don't. Because if they had money, they wouldn't be trying to, cut their staff, cut the staff salary. They don't have money, but they have requirements because they still need to keep the business ticking along. But they know that the job market and the commercial space is changing. And as it is changing, jobs are not as readily available. We already know the interim market has dried up, especially across, I'd say, end of July, August. And we definitely know that obviously with the furlough fund coming to a close in October, there's going to be a lot more people in the job market. So what these organisations are doing are they're exploiting the situation. They're taking for granted the fact that people are desperate, confused, and some people just want a job by any means necessary. And we kind of saw what happened with the IR35. So my contractors, you know what I'm talking about here. When they said, right, IR35 comes into effect 5th of April 2020. And then because of the pandemic, the government did a U-turn and said, right, no, we're postponing it for another year. It will be 2021. So all those people that were contracting through their limited companies, they thought, crap, they're about to introduce IR35. They accepted perm roles. Some of them went inside IR35. And then when the government announced they're postponing it for a year, everyone was like, oh my God. And they couldn't then revert back to their old contracts. We saw in the pandemic Everyone's like, oh my God, lockdown, oh my God. They ran to Tesco's, they ran to Sainsbury's and every single shop they could find, and they bought all the toilet roll. Oh my God, there's an oil spillage, oil shortage. Everybody runs to the petrol station. There's no petrol. They are exploiting people's vulnerability and ignorance. At any given situation, when people feel like something is not easily accessible to them, they panic and they accept a job for 43k when they're probably worth 60k or have had a role of 60k. People are being made redundant. People don't understand the process of redundancies, and organisations are exploiting their ignorance and not following redundancy rules. And therefore, what you have are people just willing to accept anything. And my thing is this: if you accept a role and you were previously on 60, 70k, you accept a role that's paying you 40, 43k. Number one, you'll probably be on that salary for a really long time, because if the market is going to get any worse, there'll be no jobs available, few and far between. Or for one job where there'll normally be 10 applications, there'll be 50. So again, it will reduce your opportunity to get the role or even be interviewed. But if you take a significant pay cut, number one, you will be on that salary for a long time. Number two, if you take that role, it's very difficult to negotiate. I will go as far as saying negotiation is non-existent, because they know you're desperate now, because they know, and they look at your CV and they know that you've worked in all these organisations. They might even go online. They may even ask you what you were on. And they're like, no, we're going to offer her 50% less of what she was on, and she's going to take it. So then you can't then take it and expect now to have any leverage for a negotiation. So you can see the vicious circle of accepting something, when you accepting something out of desperation rather than accepting something that is fair, that you deserve and you work hard for. Please, 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 I'll encourage all of you guys to really think. Don't accept something that's at the level of your self-esteem, especially when you know your self-esteem is not very high. I feel like organizations are doing all of this, and from a business perspective, you can try to understand the logic, but it also requires employees to not know their value, or if their self-esteem is low, then they take a job at the level of their self-esteem. And I promise you, it is a vicious cycle of undervaluing yourself, because at what point do you place then or replace the value back on yourself again? It's almost like if you have worked your way up and then you then take a salary that's lower than what you would normally accept, it's almost like starting again. But then these organizations, you'll be the first one out when they're doing a restructure. You're the first one out when they're doing a redundancy, because probably you were the last in. Or maybe you're on a fixed term contract and therefore you're definitely going to be the first out. But let's take this back a little bit. Do you remember I said to you, part of the role is basically putting together a team, a contract management team? I put it to you that if you're going to pay a contract commercial director £43,000, there is no way whatsoever you've got the money for that commercial contract director to then create a team and develop a function. So what will happen is you're effectively tricking someone to take a lower salary. Remember, commercial contract director, yeah? That doesn't sit in the board, so it's director by name. You're puffing shoulders, senior management team. But then they will come to you a few months later and say, sorry, we don't have money for the team. What do you think is going to happen? You become the team on £43,000. You become the team. So this is what I'm talking about, your self-esteem. You get to that point where you accept it, and they now know, right, she'll accept all other bullshit that we are going to give her, because we know we don't even have the money for her. But now she's taking it. That tells us, number one, she's desperate for a role. Number two, the market must be really, really bad. Number three, this is what we're going to get away with. There's definitely going to be room to play for in terms of what we can take advantage and what we can get away with her. So the so-called team that you think you're going to be implementing, it's you. It's a team of one. And again, you'll work your finger to the bone, blood, sweat and tears, only for £43,000. And then when they're doing a restructure, they're like, yep, sorry about that. You've got to go. Or I do you one better. They won't even do the restructure. They'll say, right, we're looking into restructuring the company and you haven't delivered on your deliverables. Well, I haven't delivered because I haven't even got the money to implement the team that you've asked me to put there. Well, because of that, we're looking at how people have been delivering on what they're supposed to do, and that will now contribute towards who we're going to make redundant. Again, it will be you. Can you see the vicious cycle? You have to be able to think one step ahead. You have to be able to do your due diligence in the beginning. And it is a balance. It is a balance between I really, really need a job versus I need to make sure that I get a job that pays me well enough that I know that I can get up every morning and do this job, a job that pays me well enough that I can not only pay my bills, but I have money to pay it with, but pays me well enough that sometimes when I have to work late, it's few and far between, but I don't mind because not only am I getting what I want from this job, but I'm also being paid really well to be able to do this job. But if you pay someone 43,000 and it is a senior role sitting on a senior leadership team, you should expect £43,000 worth of work, which is not going to be that much. So can you see what I'm saying to you? Can you look at what I'm saying to you? This is the reason why I had to bad up that woman on the phone. And I put it to you that when they withdrew the job role, it's either because number one, other people who they have wanted to take through to second interview said the same thing. Number two, people just withdrew and didn't even explain why they were withdrawing from the process. Or number three, maybe I was the only one that got to that second stage. And when I told her about herself with this job, that she's trying to move mad, she must have thought, right, we're going to have to go back to the drawing board. But they cannot afford me. Therefore, I humbly withdraw. Knowing your worth doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you self-aware about the value you place on yourself. I'm really tired of people shaming black women who are confident, who know their value, who are open about, number one, maybe if they want to be open about how much they earn. Me personally, I'm not necessarily open about that. There's things that I keep to myself. But we need to give black women their flowers. When a black woman turns around to you and she says, do you know what? I work in tech and I earn over 100k a year. You need to clap for her. Because when she entered the tech field, she went on 100k. She's found a way to create a niche. She knows her value. She works hard to get what she believes she deserves. When you see somebody with multiple revenue streams, respect the fact that this person understands their value enough that they want to collect all the bags, celebrate them, give them their flowers. When somebody tells you, when your friend comes to you and says, I was offered this role, but I rejected it for X, Y, Z, understand the logic behind why your friend rejected that role, but celebrate your friend and continue to lift that friend up as they discover what their value is and they refuse to take less than what they deserve. Celebrate her, give her her flowers. Why is it that white people can come out, they can talk all types of whatever they want to talk about and activate their white privilege as they tell you how great they are, how much they earn, how much they won't accept, how much they value their career. But when a black woman does it, we want to shame her, we want to humiliate her. We want proof because we do not believe her. But you believe a white person that's happy to basically still take your flowers. The person that, white people that are happy to make sure they get you on the cheap. Those are the people you don't ask for proof. Those are the people you value. But when a black woman is navigating the world of work successfully, instead of encouraging her, giving her her flowers, celebrating her, screaming her from the rooftops, no, we don't want to do that. We want to drag her down. We want to tell her, no. This is where my self-esteem is. How dare yours be so high? Come and join me down here. No. We won't encourage the black woman to attain success because we believe that we have reached the ceiling of success. How can you tell another black woman to prove what she earns or to prove her success? If she has reached a ceiling of success, understand that she walked through the valleys of the shadow of death to get there. Understand that her shoulders are stiff and she's weary and tired. But as she continues to navigate the world of work, she understands that she has to battle and navigate white people. Why should she battle and navigate black people too? What is that? We need to spend more time encouraging black women to know their worth. Because when you encourage a black woman to know her worth and she realizes that worth, She will be able to be the example of what success is and how, and therefore may even be open to tell you the journey of her success, so that we can all go on that journey together, because nobody wants to be the token. I don't ever want to be a token. Best believe if I start off as a token, I will open the floor for everybody. Me, put together a contract management team, you've got to understand at least 80% of that workforce is going to be black. You need to know that. And when I say they're going to be black, they'll be experienced enough to handle the job. But I want to see black women flourish. There's not enough of us. But there is a lot of us telling the stories of the uncomfortable realities of the workplace. There's a lot of us. White people can go in and out of jobs like a conveyor belt, in and out of a job. Black people don't have that. There was a post that I saw recently. I've got to read it to you. Let me just get my phone. And this really summed it up to me. It says, men apply for jobs when they meet 60% of the hiring criteria, while women wait until we meet 100%. I put it to you, it's not women, it's black women wait until we meet 100% of the criteria. This now leads me to something else. So obviously, I'm still going to talk about the fixed term contracts and stuff, but it leads me to something else. Why do you apply for jobs that are just what you believe are on your level? Why? That is a whole nother episode, but let's touch it quickly. Why is it that you may see a senior role, you can do everything on the job description, but you think that that is out of your ability, out of your reach, out of your capability? Why? And then you're saying that people do not see you. Do you place yourself in a position to be seen? Do you put yourself in a position to be seen? People can't see you in the dark, darling. You need to put the lights on and come to the front. So when people ask, oh, why are you so confident? Do you think someone gave me a senior role? Do you think it was just, hey, we want to give you a senior role? Do you think I got a senior role from a single role? Or do you think it was because I was going for certain roles, and every single role I went for, I made sure it was a higher level than what I was on before? Therefore, when I saw senior contract manager, senior consultant, I applied for them roles. You tried to tell me that I am not good enough to do that role. But we have, as black women, limiting beliefs, and we hold on to those limiting beliefs. The white man or white woman will know that they don't even have, I didn't even go to GCSE, they don't even have common SATs. They don't have SATs, but you see them apply for those management roles. You will go and see them and they'll get it. Yes, white privilege and everything, but let's not knock them. At the end of the day, they still went to apply for something that was greater than them and they got it. And then when you're shocked or you're licking your wounds, did you apply? Or did you allow the system to intimidate you enough to keep you where you are standing? Everyone talks about the ceiling. The ceiling exists, but do you know that we stand underneath the ceiling? Some of us will just walk there. Oh yeah, we have reached the ceiling and we just stand still. I'm telling you right now, unless you are willing to plant the seeds of your flowers will not grow. We talk about giving people their flowers. But me too, I give myself flowers, but I have to plant the seeds of the flowers I seek to harvest. Unless you are willing to come out of your comfort zone and start applying for those senior roles, as well as the roles that you feel that are within your capability, how are you going to see or attain success? How? Because we know they're not going to give it to us unless we go there and show up. We know that those senior roles, they won't even tell us they exist. So if you are in a role whereby you've been there for a long time and you're waiting for someone to give you your flowers, baby girl, give yourself a date. If your flowers have not arrived, you need to go look at somebody else's garden center, darling, and go and get some other flowers. Go and push yourself. I didn't get to where I am today unless I pushed myself. I had to push myself because I realized that my manager's not going to push me. My friends, it's not their job to push me. I have to push myself because I know what I want. I know who I am. I have self-awareness, but more importantly, I know what success looks like for me. Everybody has a different definition of success. Therefore, I can't expect other people then to place me in a position of success unless I'm willing to place myself in a position of success, because I define what success means to me. You know, when people say to me, oh, Toy, you're really successful, I go really quiet because I feel like that is what you define as success, but you're creating a ceiling for me. You're creating a ceiling for me. Because if someone says, oh, you're successful, people feel like, job done. My job isn't done until I collect all the bags that have my name on it. Did you hear me? I am not successful until I collect all the bags that have my name on it. Do you get it? I remember when I started Toya Talks, and it started on Snapchat. And it was important for me to just show you guys what life is like as a black woman going to work. Every morning I'd snap on my way to work, on my way back from work, sometimes even at lunchtime. If something's happened, I might. And I watched it organically grow, because I feel like women could see that I was doing just like they were doing. I was waking up every morning. I was squeezing myself on the train. I was smelling people's BO and bad breath in the morning. I was fighting for a seat in the morning, navigating the Northern Line, Central Line, and every other line under the sweltering heat. On my way back, I was exhausted and tired. My tights had holes in them. Girl, I had friction burns, just like everybody else, because I am just like everyone else. The difference, I believe, and the only difference, is that I've just been very, very honest about my journey. I've been extremely honest. Good, bad, and ugly. And then I feel like Toya Talks was important to create a safe space for black women to be honest too, to be able to learn, to be able to understand that success is attainable, but you define success. People shouldn't define what success is for you. If I was to say, what makes you successful? What would make you successful? You should be able to answer that question. So when people tell me I'm successful, I appreciate the compliment, but my journey hasn't stopped. I've still got more things that I need to do and achieve. Like, I'm trying to create certain things that I feel like until they're done, my purpose and my job is not complete. In my personal career, like, my friends know this, they deep this, yeah? The way I love what I do, and I love it even more because I feel like I have been blessed to know what I am good at and what my purpose is. So I do it freely. I don't even look at it as work. But we are now in a situation where we're having to reevaluate what work and career looks like for each and every one of us. During this pandemic, during this furlough, during this recession, we're having to assess our careers, assess the jobs, and now start to really ask ourselves some questions. We are going to have to start seasoning our CVs the way we season our meat and chicken. Yes, we're going to have to do that. So when I tell you guys, oh guys, I've got a CV masterclass on the toytalks.com website, you guys think I just put, there is a reason. It's almost as though God knew this pandemic was coming. God knew we was going to be in a recession, and God said, okay, my daughter, these are the masterclasses I need you to develop. And everybody has been so grateful and really, really good feedback about the masterclasses, the CV masterclasses, the negotiation masterclass, applying for private sector, public sector roles. These are the masterclasses that I feel that you guys need to be able to season your CV, season your interview skills. There's an interview skills masterclass to get you to that level whereby you're even confident in yourself when you are applying for these roles, applying for these senior roles that you deserve. So let's move on to fixed term contracts. Let's move there. I don't understand. Some of you are not even in fixed term relationships, and you're now coming to tell me that fixed term contracts are more secure than perm roles or more secure than interim contract roles. You are wrong. Did you hear? You are wrong. Every single employment related contract you receive, you better look at it like with a fine tooth comb. Yes, you better. You better look at it, mark it up with a fine tooth comb. And I know that I need to develop a masterclass on marking up your employment contract. That is something let me write that down. Fixed term contracts, I've actually, earlier on in the episode, I said it was like halfway between an interim role and a perm role. But it's a borrowed time contract, okay? let's look at it that way. They're fixed for a term. So usually it's no longer than 24 months. And it would usually expire a day before its 24-month anniversary. And I'll tell you why. Because once you've been working for an organization for 2 years and over, you then become entitled to what? Redundancy payments. It's harder to get rid of staff who are entitled to redundancy payments because companies will then have to pay money out, money often that they don't have, hence why you're going through a redundancy process. So when they are now trying to restructure and decide who they're going to make redundant, people say first in, first out. But they also look at length of time. So if you are on a fixed term contract, your job is in trouble. Because it's easy to get rid of you, because it's only for a fixed term. You still have termination rights in the contract. They're usually mutual termination rights. And if they're not, they're still termination rights that the business can utilize. And they know that if your contract is 24 months, 18 months, they can get rid of you and not have to pay the additional cost of redundancy. So you will never see a fixed term contract for like 3 years. It won't exist. They might as well make you perm. It wouldn't be no more than 24 months, and it would usually terminate a day before the anniversary of the 24 months, because as soon as the 24 months is activated, you become entitled to redundancy payments. Now, when you are offered a fixed term contract role or contract to review because you've been offered the job, you need to ask them if the salary is pro-rated. Did you hear me? Pro-rated. What do I mean by that? You can have a fixed term role advertised for £50,000 a year. And it is a fixed term contract for 5 months. You and I know that you're not going to make £50,000 in those 5 months, because that 5 months that £50,000 is across 12 months. So pro-rata is pro-ratering that £50,000 by 5 months. Yes, you heard me correctly. Because we are in FTC season. A lot of the contracts you are seeing now will be fixed term contracts, FTCs, because businesses are in a crisis where they need staff, they don't want to have to pay out all that money, and it is more cost effective for them to have FTC contracts. So within those FTC contracts, they are for a certain period of time. You need to ask if it's prorated. It's imperative, because I don't want you taking these jobs thinking you're going to get £50,000 a year, but you're only there for 5 months. So clearly 5 months is not 12 months. But I know in this process where people don't know, they're not going to know that. So I'm quite happy to share that information with you. And please take notes of questions to ask. You are allowed to ask a question. You are allowed. When you go into a shop and it doesn't have the price on it, you go to the cashier and say, excuse me, how much is this? It's the same thing. You're allowed to ask questions. In terms of holidays, now holidays, you do usually get it. This is why I say fixed term contract is like half perm, half contract, half interim contract, because you do get holidays. And they work out your holidays prorated again. So if the company policy is that people get 25 days holiday a year, but your contract is 5 months, obviously you prorata those 25 days a year according to how long your contract is for. You don't get 25 days worth of holidays if your contract's only 5 months. It doesn't make sense. So I want to highlight that to you guys, because I know people don't know, and it's an obvious mistake to make. When I started off in the world of employment, I didn't know this. Okay, this is stuff that I have learned across the course of my career. Pensions. There are FTC contracts that don't have a provision for pensions. Now, contributory pensions, or any pensions, some of them do not offer you a pension because it's just a fixed term contract role. It's temporary. So this is another question to ask. If you don't see it in your contract, you can ask that question. But likely, if you don't see it in your contract, it's not something they're going to be offering you. And therefore, you would have to, on a personal level, make provisions for your pension. I would say in fixed term contracts that the benefits package is non-existent. it also depends what you call benefits, because people consider holidays and pension as part of a benefits package. I don't see that as a benefit. I see it as part and parcel of an employment contract. But as a fixed term contract, you should ask, what are the benefits? So, for example, pension, because some organizations consider pension as benefit, but also understanding what other things that you are entitled to that are considered as a company benefit as part of your fixed term contract. A question that I have been asked is, what is better, an interim contract or a fixed term contract? I would say it depends on people's situation, but if you're asking me on a personal level, I would say I prefer interim contracts, because you know what you're getting. You're an interim, you have deliverables, you have a set time, you deliver them, there's no expectations, you walk in there knowing that you are a contractor and the only expectation is that you deliver on your deliverables. Whereas with a fixed term contract, I believe you enter a false sense of security, because part and parcel, they make it seem that you are effectively an employee, but you're only an employee for a fixed term with hardly any benefits. And also you have a set date when you have to leave. Now, as a contractor, we have that too. So you may have a 6-month contract and they will stipulate the exact day in which that contract ends. So they do the same with fixed term contracts. Now, in terms of renewals, so with as an interim contractor, they can renew your contract as many times as they want, up until a point of 2 years, and then it gets a bit precarious, because after 2 years they start seeing you, HMRC starts seeing you as an employee, and it just gets a bit messy. As a fixed term contract person, if they renew you, so if you have an 18-month contract and they say, oh, we want to renew you, they'll renew you on a whole new contract. So it's not 18 months plus. No, they'll give you a brand new contract, because again, they don't want you to have any employment rights. They don't want to have to pay any redundancies. They want you to be on a fixed term. So you would effectively have to sign a new contract for a new period as a fixed term contract. So for me, they are very, very similar between interim contracts and a fixed term contract, but on a personal level, I prefer interim contract. It's, for me, there's no kind of grey, you know what it is. And I feel like with fixed term contract, there's a lot of grey, especially if you're not asking the right questions, especially if they're quite ambiguous in a fixed term contract. You need to be able to draw out certain things, and there's a lot of work, I think, that goes into negotiating a fixed term contract in comparison to negotiating an interim contract, because with an interim contract, all you are really negotiating is the day rate if you want to, and the termination rights if you want to. And that's it, because you don't get any holidays as an interim contractor. You have a private pension that you sort out with your limited company. You have an accountant. You get paid maybe even weekly. Some people get paid monthly. Whereas with a fixed term contract, you probably would be paid every month like the perm employees. But I think fixed term contracts lulls you into a false sense of security. So I definitely think that you need to go in there with your eyes open, asking the right question, and understanding that fixed term contracts are like borrowed time contracts. That's the best way to look at it, and that's the way I do. When you look at risk, I look at risk in a different way, obviously, because of the career I'm in. But when I look at risk in comparison to fixed term contracts and compare it to maybe perm contracts, interim contracts, I would say that the risk is quite minimal with fixed term contracts, because it ends at a fixed time. You still get an employment badge. You're part and parcel. They treat you like a perm employee. You are taxed at source. You are paid probably at the same time as the other perm employees. But you have to remember within your mind that your contract is 18 months. You're a year in. So you've got 8 months left. I would suggest 6 months before the end of your fixed term contract, open up a conversation. Are you going to renew my contract? And understand that that renewal is not going to be 18 months plus whatever the renewal is. It will be a brand new contract. Now, people talk about job security. One of my really good friends, Bimpe, spoke about job security in terms of fixed term contract. We had a really good conversation about it. And I said to her, and she agreed, there is no job security. There's no such thing as job security. There are jobs that are more secure than others. So as it currently stands, the public sector is more secure than the private sector. And that's just because of the way the pandemic has really, really lent on the purse strings of the public sector. They're getting their money from the government. Private sector are getting their money from profits, and they have to make a profit. And during this pandemic and lockdown, private companies haven't been really making a profit. A lot of them have closed down. A lot of them have let staff go. A lot of them are making people redundant. So I would say fixed term contract is only as secure as any other job. So they could give you a fixed term contract for 18 months, and within 3 months say, hey, we're terminating your contract. Termination rights at 6 months, we're terminating. So I definitely think you just need to recondition what your mind says about fixed term contracts, because they call you an employee in the contract, because they treat you like an employee. But the reality is, even perms have their contracts terminated. They do. There's termination rights, but I think with perm it's a bit different, because even though there's termination rights in their contract, there is other things that they put in it, like gross misconduct. They put all of those things, and you tend to find the termination of perm employees after their probation period is there's a few more steps that they have to get to before they terminate. Whereas with a fixed term contract, it's not the same. It's not like that. They could just terminate if they feel like it, in accordance to the termination rights in the fixed term contract. Probation period. Some fixed term contracts don't have a probation period, some do. It's not unusual to see a probation period in a fixed term contract, but it makes no sense to me, because if you have an 18-month fixed term contract, why would you have 6 months of that on probation? But again, this could be a way to kind of, sort through people, get rid of people at the end of their probation, because they're on a fixed term contract. It makes it easier, I guess, to terminate a contract if someone's on fixed term, if they put probation in their contract too. With fixed term contracts, let's not get too obsessive with the word fixed, because it makes it sound like it's permanent or alludes to some type of permanency. Is that a word? I think that you need to remove your mind in terms of thinking of fixed term contracts like that. I mean, the pill isn't 100%. Sometimes our sanitary towels and tampons aren't fixed. So why do you think a fixed term contract is very fixed? It doesn't work like that. Nothing in I would say contracts are fixed. Things can be, navigated. Things can be avoided, and that's why you have certain things in employment contracts, like termination rights. And there's other clauses as well that give employers the opportunity to end someone's employment. So let's not get fixated with the word fixed. You will find fixed term contracts in the private sector, in the public sector, third sector, charity sector. They use fixed term contracts. So I want to quickly tell you the questions that I think you should ask, and I kind of said them pervasively in this segment, but you need to ask how long that fixed term contract is for. You need to reacquaint yourself with the termination rights of that fixed term contract. What are the benefits that you are receiving in that fixed term contract? How much holiday are you getting prorated? Is the contract prorated? And therefore, what is the salary prorated? You need to be able to work that out, so you have a reasonable expectation of what you will receive every month or every week, depending on the frequency in which they pay your salary on a fixed term contract. It's really important to ask as well if they think that the fixed term contract may be extended. You need to ask them, is there a reason why this is a fixed term contract? That's a possible question that you could ask. And also as well, something that I think is really important that I don't think people talk about this is clearances. As part of this fixed term contract, do you get clearances? What do I mean by that? So if you are in the public sector, there's counter-terrorism clearance. I have counter-terrorism clearance. And security clearance. And these are certain clearances that allow you to do certain jobs. So there are certain, I call them, those type of jobs are a bit more premium, because not a lot of people have these security clearances. But the reason I ask you to ask if these fixed term contracts, you get any security clearance, especially if they're fixed term contracts in the public sector, is security clearances are like gold dust. If you can get a security clearance as part of a fixed term contract, you're laughing, because there are certain roles that are then advertised only for people who have certain clearances. So that security clearances, I think there's an even higher clearance. I think it's a DVC or DV clearance. And then you have counter-terrorism clearance as well. And I would suggest go ahead and Google and see what those clearances are. Not every organisation offers it, especially in the public sector. Some roles do not offer you clearances. I know for a fact that the fact that I have counter-terrorism clearance has really helped me a lot. I'm not even going to lie, especially with public sector roles in the past and certain conversations that I've been having. I definitely know when trying to find the edge and get an edge above other candidates, it's really helped me to stand out. So I would definitely say for those fixed term contracts in the public sector, ask if you get any clearances or any clearances are required for this particular role. And I think as you do your research, you will know what roles will require certain clearances, and those clearances are usually in the advert. Now, some roles, they require certain clearances and are willing to give you those clearances, and that means they're willing to pay for it, and they sponsor the clearance, and they make sure that they obtain that clearance for you. Once you have it, it's yours. And it is more than just DBS clearances. So DBS, also known as CRB clearances, DBS and CRB clearances are like, those clearances, they're good to have, and often organizations can do it on your behalf. You can pay for it, but those are really like entry-level clearances, and it's just making sure you don't have a criminal record if the role requires that you don't have a criminal record, and doing a background check. Now, when I talk about enhanced clearances, I am talking about security clearance, CTC clearance, and the other one is DV clearance. Those are higher levels of clearances that you can't just buy online. You have to have a sponsor from the organization, and they have their own internal systems of doing those clearances, and they are difficult. I'm not even going to lie to you. They ask you where your mum was born. I mean, my parents are Nigerian. They want to know the town they were born in, what last name, what my mum's maiden name is. I know they're not going to no village in Nigeria, but they really check it's very, very extensive. So if you can get any type of security clearances, get them. I think they're so important. And I think when this wave of recession and this mad commercial space changes again, and we are a bit more stabilized, you will really utilize the advantage that such clearances give you. DBS and CRB clearances are just entry level. We all have them. We can all get them. It's the clearances that are not easily obtained that basically give you access to sometimes often premium jobs, and it makes the pool of candidates smaller because you have an enhanced clearance. So there's just something to bear in mind. But yeah, guys, I think that's kind of it when it comes to this episode in terms of fixed term contracts. It was really important, I felt, that we had this conversation because it is reflective of what is happening on the market. And as Black women, I definitely believe that knowledge is power. I needed to share that knowledge. I know there's a lot of Black women at different levels of their career. And I definitely think that, you know, the podcast resonates with women who are all over the world. I mean, I say women, Black women all over the world, but Black women who are at different stages of their career. I think it's really important for us to not lose focus and lose sight of who we are and what we want, and not having to necessarily completely bend and compromise, and at the risk of compromising ourselves. And I definitely think that there is going to be a little give and take and a little compromise because of what the situation is like on the job market, but making sure that we maintain our integrity, our professionalism, and more importantly, knowing our value. You guys know that I had the Toy Talks apparel affirmation collection that launched on the 1st of August, and it sold out within 72 hours. I received quite a lot of emails asking me, are you restocking? I'm trying to buy stock. I'm trying to get this. Everything's out of stock. When I said it was sold out within 72 hours, I weren't joking. There's no stock left. I have no plans to restock. It is limited edition. So those people who successfully bought the apparel, well done. Those of you who didn't, unfortunately, I'm not restocking, but you know, I'm always working on stuff in relation to Toy Talks, so make sure you subscribe to the Toy Talks newsletter, which is on the toytalks.com website. Make sure you subscribe, and you'll get any newsletters of any announcements that are due to come out. Also, as well, guys, I definitely want to talk about spirituality and religion in the workplace. That's something that I am working on as a podcast episode because it's really important, and I think it's something that we don't talk about enough, as usual, but more importantly, something that I feel that is often quite intrinsic to how we navigate work, especially for people who are inclined to a certain religion or a certain belief. I definitely am having challenges to my own religious beliefs, but more importantly, I am really expanding my spirituality and really focusing on balance, spirituality, intuition, and really tapping into what makes me whole and complete. So I definitely want to talk about that a bit more on a separate episode. I also want to announce that you guys know Versus, you know, where our old school artists go on Instagram and they battle it out with all their hits and classics. And we have a versus coming up between Brandy and Monica, and I'm so excited. I am very excited. It's on the 31st of August 2020, which I believe is next week. 5 p.m. ET time, 8 p.m. I think EST time. No, 5 p.m. Oh, I don't know. It's American time, right? We've got to figure it out. But for the UK, it's going to be quite late. And I'm definitely going to be up watching that. I'm a massive, and always have been a massive, Monica fan. I'm a massive Monica fan. I respect and give Brandy her flowers, but I really love Monica. She's just amazing. So I'm really going to be excited to watch that. So I may actually be tweeting and stuff. So make sure you support and watch that as our Black sisters share their many, many hits. And they are actually doing that on Instagram, like I said, but at the Tyler Perry Studios, which I think is brilliant. And I love seeing just Black women and Black people coming together to celebrate what it is that God has blessed them with, their gifts. So make sure you watch out for that if you're interested, or if you're a fan, or if you just love old school jams and hits. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. If you've gotten this far, you are a real G. You are a real one. Thank you for supporting. I'm going to challenge you. All you listeners that are listening to this episode, I challenge you to recommend the Toy Talks podcast, an episode that is your favorite, even this episode, to at least 2 Black women. Yep, that's my call for action. At least 2 Black women. If you guys want to follow me on social media, my Twitter handle is Toya_W, and use the hashtag Toya Talks. If you want to follow me on my personal Instagram page, it's Toya_Washington. If you want to follow the podcast on Instagram, it's Toya_Talks. If you want to follow me on Snapchat, it's all one word, Toya Washington. I need to be more active on the Toya Talks Instagram page, and that's something I'm challenging myself to do between now and the end of the year. You guys know I'm writing my books. I'm really, really busy at the moment, and God's so kind, you know, I am really being inspired for this book, and I just need to commit myself and try and get this book done for you guys, because you guys are very much deserving of it. You guys know in July I was supposed to do another Toy Talks live. I did one in 2018. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, I had to postpone it until next year. I don't have a date yet. It will be a Toy Talks live, and if you went to my last live event in 2018, you know what to possibly expect. But if I am going to do a Toy Talks live, I need to make sure that it is safe to do so in 2021, and I definitely want to do like a cross between a Toy Talks live and a Toy Talks podcast come together for a live event. That would be amazing. I'm also toying with the idea of doing something on Zoom, like an end of year Toy Talks wrap up. Let me know what you think. Do you want me to do that? If you want me to do that, tweet me, send me an Instagram, post me, tell me. I want to hear from you. Shall I do a Toy Talks wrap up over Zoom? Let me know. Anyway, guys, I'm going to draw this episode to a close. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. I want to thank each and every one of you for supporting the Toy Talks podcast and the Toy Talks platform. If you are listening to this podcast or episode on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review. We're currently at 5 stars. I really appreciate your reviews. I read all of them. Please rate and review it. I apologize for that little sound that you're hearing. It is the fan that I had to put on. It's so hot. If you are interested in any of the masterclasses, albeit the CV masterclass, the interview masterclass, the mother and daughter masterclass, the negotiation masterclass, make sure you log on to toytalks.com to purchase a masterclass. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a great week. I hope you're having a great month. I will see you again next Tuesday for another episode of the Toy Talks podcast. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toy Talks podcast.